the cloud. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, me too. Okay, so let's look at the PowerPoint for this week. Nobody has any questions, but I just wanted to check and see anything about last week's discussion or assignment. How was risk and quality?
I thought they were pretty challenging. I guess the challenge was to not say as much as you could, because you could add an awful lot to risk and quality.
Yeah. Did the papers that you wrote during those classes, like the risk management paper, was that helpful to you?
You know, I'm going to be real honest and say I never went back and looked at that paper. I just used the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
the books were definitely helpful.
Okay, the books from the class.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have to go back and look at the paper. Now that you said that, I was like, boy, do I feel silly.
No, I use a lot the paper because I did a lot of research on it. So there was a lot of little things that were a little bit more explained. I'm still working on it.
Okay. And that is the case, that not everybody has these things turned in from last week, and that's no big deal. I haven't started grading the week 5 yet. I try to grade for at least 3 hours a day, which is about 6 assignments. And so I will, and this week we've got presentations to listen to and lots of stuff going back in, but I'll try to get those back to you as soon as I can. Okay, has the instructor feedback been helpful on assignments you've gotten back so far?
Yes, very much so.
I think so.
Good. I know every now and then people think, oh my gosh, just, I got it. So ignore it if it doesn't help you. So, good. Okay, well, here's my feedback on last week. I'm seeing very helpful feedback to and from peers again. That was great. I saw a lot of keeping up on a holiday weekend, again, a holiday week against all odds, which I thought was good. I'm hoping that you got a little time off work that helped make up some of that. And I see more varied use of sources as we go through, especially during that human resources communications week. I thought that was helpful. So that's my feedback as a group. And so here's what we have for week 6. Procurement is our second to last knowledge area. And procurement is all of the 12 point whatever processes, both a discussion and assignment. And then the other part of discussion and assignment this week is leadership and ethics. And we'll talk a little bit about how you do that, given that it's not a knowledge area. And then you'll be doing a presentation, a reflection, what am I doing differently? So let's look at those. So procurement, you do need to buy something, anything, buy treats for your team. But the whole point of procurement is that generally projects do cost, but a lot of times the procurement groups in your organizations just make it seamless for you. So you don't have to go out and do the buying yourself. But we do need to show that you do know how to procure things and use the procurement management knowledge area. So is anybody having a trouble finding something to buy? Doesn't matter. Okay. And just make sure it agrees with your MS project management cost. So make sure it goes in that MS project thing as well as into your, and it should be in your cost paper as well. So, and if you have things, oops, like a lot of times you have OPAs in purchasing, like a purchasing department, like purchase recs, like an accounts payable organization that gives you feedback on what's been purchased and what's been paid for. What's up with my little machine? And for many, many of you, it is your shortest section. So that's a break this week. On leadership and ethics, you should use sources to support your ideas on this especially. And chapter 3 of the PMBOK guide is now all about leadership, all about the role of the project manager. And so that would be a good place to look for information. Also, there were 2 or 3 ethics documents that we used in the quality management class, the project management code of ethics, and there was another approach. But when you do this, it isn't just going back to a made-up scenario, unless your whole project scenario is made up. But do try and focus in on what challenges, for example, this project scenario that you're talking about presented for you as a leader, as project manager. So, and were there any ethical issues in the project scenario, or how does your organization treat ethics, and did that have a positive or negative impact on how easy it was to run an ethical project? And a lot of times as project managers, we do get people saying, well, let's just make this simple, just do this, even though it's not in perfect alignment with your project management code of ethics. And so that's the kind of thing that you can do a little bit of discussion on. And then as you're going through and you're talking about leadership and the challenges and lessons learned, perhaps for you in this particular project from a leadership objective, try to be just objective about both your strengths and weaknesses. Any questions on the leadership and ethics area? Not offhand. So let's talk about really the presentation. So once again, we're doing a voice thread and just bringing it up, and then on the discussion board, go ahead and put the link to your voice thread. And if you go through the voice thread link for the class, it's easiest for us to get at it. So this was an interesting interesting assignment. After I did my doctorate and focused on how project managers learn, there was just a ton of reading that I did about reflection. And we really do need to take the time, especially at the end of just a huge achievement and huge work like you've just done, to look back and see how has it changed you? What might you do differently today than you would have done a couple of years ago before you started all this? And really, I don't want you to have to go out and look up sources, and you know, it's a personal thing, it really is. So tell us in your own word, don't use sources. Every now and then somebody just kind of takes a left turn and makes it about like the knowledge areas in the PMBOK guide. And that's not really what we're looking for here. Keep it brief, focus on a couple ideas, 5 minutes, 2 or 3 ideas, and it's set up to be 15 points for your presentation, 2 points per response. But I do find, and I haven't found a reason not to give somebody 15 points for their presentation. So you might be the first. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what would cause me to say, no, yours is not worth 15 points. But I find that students do have a tendency to listen to everyone else's, just because you're all curious and because they're brief enough that it isn't onerous to listen to everybody's. Any questions about the presentation? Nope. All right, so trying something new this semester. When people are in professional programs, like for a doctorate, and often in MBA programs or master's programs, they'll just hire somebody to edit their final paper. And that's considered just dandy, no problems, nothing ethically wrong with hiring somebody to look at it from an APA perspective. Because APA is not the point of writing a paper, the content of the paper and the critical thinking and the using sources effectively. That's the point. So I thought that for the reference page, I would go ahead and just put up a shared reference page that we can all look at, and I'll just go through and fix the references on that page and say, okay, this is what it actually should be. Now for me, it's easier because I don't have to fix it for 8 different people. I can just put it up on that page and say, look at the shared reference page for how this one should be done. And so that will save me time. If you don't want to, you can put things on that reference page. Participation is voluntary. I will give you feedback on every reference page listing that's posted there. And the link to the Google Doc that we're using for shared is in the content area. So I'm going to go over to that shared reference page after I finish with this presentation. Okay. MS Project Workshop number 2. Someone, just one of you, sent me an in-text email and said, here's my final MS Project Workshop. Can you give me feedback? And I totally ignored them and have not given them any feedback yet, but I will. But you are all welcome to push your MS Project Workshop out onto week 4 in that discussion area, and I'll just kind of watch for them there, or email it to me if you'd like any feedback or help. How many of you are working on your week 8 final paper, and how's that going?
I'm working on mine. It's going pretty well.
Good.
Going back and making sure I didn't say something different in week 2 than I did in week 5. That's a challenge. So
Yeah. Is there anybody who has not started that yet? And I would
I
expect,
would have to say I have not started. This is Shelby. I plan on doing it this week, though.
okay. And absolutely, you know, some people don't start until week 7 or the beginning of week 8. And it's not a big deal. You don't have to start it now. You've certainly got your hands full just doing the week-to-week work. So, but if you are, you know, let me know what's going well, what problems you're having, anything that we could do to help with that.
Shelby, this is Heidi talking. I would suggest you start sooner than later. I worked on it for about 4 hours last Tuesday night just to plug in my week 1, 2, and 3 into the final because I had to reformat a lot of my paper. So just to maybe get your feet wet, I would suggest doing it sooner. It's just my thoughts, but I'm kind of over the top. So
Another thing that I would suggest is plugging in your later weeks first. So for example, you have feedback on communications and resources, and by that time you really knew what you were doing. So if you go and plug those in and then do any kind of things, you'll be, then when you start to, the problem with week 1 is that we did part of it in a graphic organizer and part of it in APA, and you really weren't sure where you were going with everything that week. So if you start sequentially with week 1, it's harder than if you look at your stuff from week 4, for example, and plug that into your final paper and then go back to the one before that and plug those in. That's my sense. Anything else on final papers? Any other questions? I'm just going to go to the end of this presentation, stop sharing that, and share this. Huh. I would think it would show up here. Well, I don't see a way for me to share what's that shared resource list, but it's just a table. So I'm just going to look at it. Personally, and tell you what the rules are on it. So the purpose of the list is to just make sure that you're correctly formatting your reference page listings and just paste them into the table. And if you can paste them in alphabetical order, that's great. And just do your best to format it correctly. And the instructor will verify the formatting. And it's a 3-column list with the date that the instructor verified it, a column for the in-text citation, and a column for the reference page listing itself. And if it does say date verified and has a date and my initials, then please don't change those. And all of these are missing the hanging indent. And you'll find that it's fairly easy to put that in your on the reference page in your week 8 paper, because it has that hanging indent built in. And if you have issues with that, I can help. If there are more than 3 authors, it gives the in-text citation for the first time that you do it, and it gives you the subsequent ones, which is, so for like, for example, for Smith, Jones, and Polly, the first one would be Smith, comma, Jones, comma, ampersand, Polly, comma, 2007. But for any subsequent in-text citations, you would just do Smith et al. Period, comma, 2017, and parentheses. So it gives both the first and the subsequent. And just one little thing is that if there are 6 or more authors, you don't ever have to write them all out except on the reference page. You just say Smith et al. Period, comma, right away. And one other thing I just wanted to say, and you must have an in-text citation for every author listed, because what I do when I go through your reference list is just do a find for that author's name. And if it's on the reference page, but it's not in the paper as an in-text citation, then it's not really a source that you used. It's just randomly showed up on your reference page for some reason. The other thing is that within a single paragraph, you actually only have to put the date once. So for example, the first time you're in a paragraph and you say PMI, comma, 2017, that's great. And within the same paragraph, you just actually be able to go PMI in parentheses, and you wouldn't have to put 2017 if you didn't want to. However, things don't carry over from paragraph to paragraph. So every new paragraph, you have to start out with PMI, comma, 2017, and then you can knock off the date farther down in that paragraph. So most people find that it's just simpler to put it in all the time and not have to worry about it. So that's kind of the feedback on the reference page listing. And it is in week 7 content area. So let me find my manage participants. We're still recording, that's a good thing. Oh, there we are. Nope. It's going away. Okay. So, anything else we should talk about today? Tracia, how do you pronounce your name?
It's Tracia.
Tracia. That's really pretty. And
Thank you.
usually I pick it up on one of the presentations that you do, but I knew I hadn't for you. Scott, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Robert.
Oh, yeah. Good. And
Yes.
Scott?
Michaelis.
What?
Michaelis.
Michaelis. Oh, that's pretty too.
Answered everything.
Good. And Kyle, how do you say your last name?
It's Peden.
Okay. Good. Like to know these things. Oh. So do you have anything to say to each other?
Good luck.
Whee!
Okay, well, that's all I have for this evening. And I really appreciate everybody being here. And I think you're doing very well. And I'm really pleased with all of the camaraderie I've seen. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're doing differently. So have an excellent week 6.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night to everybody.
Good night.